Earth Penn. Are you going to welcome us?
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, you guys said you're ready. I'm sorry, I was still waiting for you because I've been waiting for you for a while.
Please keep this as the beginning of this episode.
Yes, we should have it. Welcome
Just
to
a dead stare from
Podcrushed.
Penn.
Welcome. Don't talk over me. Welcome to Podcrushed. I am your podcast pod host, Penn Badgley. I am joined by my podcast pod hosts, Nava, Kavlin, and Sophie. I'm sorry. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, just like I was. Unfortunately, I'm not in the rest of this episode. I'm not with our lovely guest today.
That's right.
I was so sick, you guys, on this day that you recorded this episode. It was rough. You know, Anais gave it to me. She goes into the daycare while I just do like a 30-minute workout. And as I dropped her off, I saw these two kids with their snotty little noses. And I was like, no.
I know those kids. Yeah.
Well, we missed you, but Kevin was awesome. And I have a question for you guys because Kevin was, we talked about so much, but he was largely here to promote the 25th anniversary of Dogma. Woo. And he made an announcement on Instagram, which I thought was really cool and bold, which is that he's at Cannes. It's the 78th year of Cannes. And he has set the goal to be at Cannes 80, which is in 2 years, to premiere a new film. He says he hasn't written it yet, but in 2 years, he is going to direct and write a Cannes-worthy film. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot and say, June 4th, 2027, what are you guys going to do?
Whoa. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to make this pun when Cannes is turning 80. I'll say maybe they should start calling it Can't.
No, you can't wiggle away from, you got to give me a real answer. In 2 years, where are you going to be, Badgley? What's your big goal?
What do you mean? I have no idea. Well, I'll have 2 more children. So I'll be alive, hopefully. Cross fingers. I will be successful, hopefully. Cross fingers. That's about as much as I've got for you.
Boo, so boring, so lame, so non-specific. You could do better.
I know. My goal for Penn is that in June 4th, 2027, he's announcing a rom-com. Like, no murder, okay? No murder, no gossip. Just a nice rom-com.
But please.
No.
Please.
No. Okay, myself. May, shoot, I keep saying May. June 4th, 2027, I will have a yard. I'm putting that out there. I will have outdoor space. You can really tell what kind of headspace I'm in with a toddler who bangs on the door in the morning to be let out. That's so boring, Nava. Sorry, where are you? June 4th.
Yeah, you guys are just really, I'm going to give you guys a spicy answer. Okay, this one doesn't come from me. This came, so you got, I don't know, listeners of the podcast might remember that I once spoke to a palm reader on Venice Beach. I have done it again, this time in New York City, spoke to a palm reader on the street. She's like, I need to give you a love reading. And she kept screaming at me. So I was like, all right, whatever. And she said that by next summer, actually that's sooner than 2 years, she said, you're going to be pregnant and married in a year. So I'm going to say in 2 years, I'm going to have a 1-year-old on my lap.
I love it.
That's what the palm reader said. But my personal goal, and she was like, call me when you get engaged because it's definitely happening.
Did she give you her number?
She gave me her number and she gave me the guy's initials. She told me a little bit about him. She was like very specific.
Is so bold.
It's a little weird, but but I'm going to keep that info to myself. Yeah. The goal that I will set for myself is to be a homeowner in 2 years.
Ooh.
There we go.
Yeah. You definitely did the best. You should have gone first.
Well, wait, you have a yard. You having a yard and being.
I have a yard. Yeah,
that's similar.
Implied in that is I'm homeowner too.
And Penn is alive. Penn is still alive.
Already a homeowner. Yeah. Just got
multiple times over.
His wife is birthing the kids. He's not even doing that work. So it's just passive. He's just watching it happen.
I just want to go back to my joke about Can't.
You know who can do it though? Kevin Smith.
Today's guest is the acclaimed film director, truly, Kevin Smith, whose films and franchises include Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy. Are you there yet? Jay and Silent Bob. He's got a spree of horror films like Tusk and Red State. He's got a million podcasts. One of which he spoke about most, Smodcast. He's also got one with his daughter that he calls Beardless Dickless Me. I don't get it. But he's here today. He's here today celebrating the re-release of the 25th anniversary re-release, rather, of Dogma, which is a film so near and dear to my heart, especially when I was 12 and 13. That cult comedy classic has a dedicated following. I'm one of them. It sold out a 25-city tour in the first 24 hours, right? Which fulfills my theory that Kevin Smith is a sellout. Hey, okay, we got a good show for you guys today, but stick around. Welcome to Podcrushed. We're your hosts. I'm Penn.
I'm Nava.
And I'm Sophie. And I think we would have been your middle school besties.
Never drinking water, always eating too much sugar, and generally ignoring the signals from our bodies. But anyway, let's have a sleepover. What we always do on this show, we start at 12 years old for everybody.
Oh, fantastic.
And you strike us, definitely, as somebody who's reflected on your adolescence a lot. You seem like you were just a total film comic book nerd, total, like a sketch comedy nerd. So just like, and then not for nothing. I mean, this is not to blow smoke up your ass, but to give you your flowers and just also state something that I think is objectively true. I mean, look, you're standing in a movie theater that you own.
Yeah.
You seem to me to be a person who somehow very young started creating the life they wanted. So I'm just kind of curious. Start us at 12. How was 12-year-old Kevin seeing the world? What did he want to do? What was day-to-day life like?
I'm 12. I'm living in Highlands, New Jersey, which is about maybe 3 miles from here. Two towns, twin towns. There's Highlands and Atlantic Highlands. Atlantic Highlands had the movie theater, so that's where we spent our youth. All the free time we had. I had a pretty idyllic childhood, man. I guess we were one of the last generations that were encouraged to like go out and play. They tell me now that we were the latchkey kid generation, which meant that we were kind of in charge of ourselves. I grew up in a house where only one parent worked, my dad, and he worked at night, the night shift at the post office. So Govy employee and stuff. And my mom was a homemaker. So there was always kind of somebody home in our house. And to show you like how wonderful it is, I know a lot of people have a problem with where they came from or their past. When I was in the nut house, like they were always like, hey man, like when you were a kid, what about your parents? They're always going at my parents. And I'm like, I gotta be honest with you. Like there's nothing there. I mean, yes, there's some insecurities probably built in and I have no respect for anybody's time when it comes to lateness and stuff. And that came directly from my mother. I'll throw her under right at them, fucking bust for that one. But, generally speaking, man, like my parents were wonderful. And so even now, like whenever I'm in this area and we do shows here, it's Modcast all the time. It's like ritualistically, I drive down to where I grew up and my house isn't even there anymore. It was destroyed by a flood and then they rebuilt and put it on stilts. So there's nothing left from my childhood where I actually grew up, but I still go past that lot, which has a house on it, and a new family lives there, and that street all the time because it was happy. I enjoyed my childhood. My parents were like wonderful. We didn't have a tight relationship though. They were 70s and 80s parents, man, and you weren't besties with your parents back then. Like they were your parents. They were on pedestals. It's kind of the same relationship you had with God as a Catholic kid. Like you're supposed to fear the Lord. And you're like, wait, aren't we supposed to love the Lord? You're like, yeah, love him all you want, but you got to fear him and stuff. And we feared our parents. Not that they were abusive or anything, but they were in charge. They called the shots. And we didn't have this buddy stuff that like when I had my kid, I went a different way. I was like, I'm 28 years old. What do I know about parenting, man? Like I can't come across like I know everything to this kid. So I'm going to treat her like she's just a smaller adult. And our relationship was mostly closer. So much so that like when she moved out at age 23, I got like an existential crisis moment where I was like, oh my God, it's over. And I asked her, I was like, kiddo, was I a good dad? And she goes, I never really thought of you as my father as much as my fun older brother who had all the money. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly the vibe I was going for. Thank you. So my father, I didn't have that relationship with him, but what I had with him was his love language, as the kids would say today, was taking me to the movies. Like he took me to movies, and particularly at age 12, that were probably more advanced than I was absolutely ready for. I remember he took me to see The World According to Garp in this very movie theater. And in that movie, it's a wonderful Robin Williams movie about a character's life based on the great John Irving novel. And, most 12-year-olds probably wouldn't be into it. They'd probably be like, this is boring. Like, I saw no other kids in that theater when I was there with my father. But it was kind of my father going, you can handle this. Either that or it was my father going, like, nobody's going to see this movie with me, so I might as well fucking take you. But it always felt like that was him trying to communicate, this is what I enjoy in life. These are my tastes. Do you understand? Like that was him raising me culturally. So at age 12, my father's bringing me to the movies every Wednesday. I think what happened was, the way I've understood the story, is my mom had a cats in the cradle conversation with my father. Since my father worked at the post office at night, doing the night shift, we didn't have a lot of crossover with him. Like we'd see him in the morning right as he was coming home from work and we were going to school. Most of the time he had to be quiet in the house because he was sleeping, because he had to get up and go to work at night and stuff. So I guess my mom was like, you're missing these kids growing up, man. And like, you got to spend more time with them. And so my father, I guess, was like, well, the fat one likes movies, so I'll take the fat one to movies more often. And so my mom told me one day, she's like, and this happened when I was 12 years old. My mom told me one day, your father's going to pick you up and he's going to bring you to the movies. He'll pick you up from school at noon and bring you to the movies. I see a matinee. I said, well, I'm not done until 3. It ain't a half day. She goes, it doesn't matter. He's picking you up. I said, what do I tell the nuns? She said, you tell him your aunt died. And so I was like, all right, that's the kind of Catholic family we were. We were encouraged to lie to the clergy. And so they call me down to the office at noon, Sister Gloria Louise. And she's like, oh my God, Kevin, I'm so sorry to hear about your aunt. I was like, yeah, it's all sudden. Just happened this morning. And she goes, your father's here to pick you up, take you to the wake. And I said, oh, okay. And she goes, we'll pray for your aunt. And I said, don't bother. And so I get into the car with Dad. I was like, what are we doing? And he goes, we're going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, wow.
So in this theater, we go see Raiders of the Lost Ark, man, matinee and stuff. Now, he wanted to see it more than I did. I was a big Harrison Ford fan because he was Han Solo, so I'd see anything he was in. But, it looked old-timey to me. So we sit down to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is incredibly fucking formative. Lights go down. And I know one version of my father, the stern patrician, the patriarch of the family, at the joy of Raiders of the Lost Ark lit this motherfucker up in a way I'd never seen him before. And he was like, oh my God, he was talking in the movie theater. He goes, oh my God, this is a cliffhanger. This is the kind of movie I would go see with your Aunt Barbara when I was a kid. We'd pay 50 cents. We'd see half a movie and they'd end it. We'd have to come back the next week. They're doing cliffhangers. This is amazing. I'm having a great time. You having a great time. It was like he had done a rail of coke off my mom's ass right before he left the house. And he was like, I'm going to take the kids to the movies, Grace. And so sitting next to that guy, sitting in movie after movie in this very same fucking building in the dark, I learned who my father was, man. Like listening to comedy. George Carlin was a gift from my father. George Carlin's in Dogma. And there's a reason for that. It's a direct line between like my father being like, you giving me Class Clown, George's album at age 9, and being like, you can handle this. Just, don't listen to it. Don't let your mother hear you listen to it. And I never gave this to you and shit. And I would listen to it all the time because at 9, you hear somebody cursing, like you're into it. It's like, oh my God, that's fun. But you listen to Carlin for a minute, you get past the curses and he's just a wizened soul. Even at 9 years old, the man enraptured me because his love of language and his storytelling. And he just seemed like a smart individual and stuff. One day my mom came in the room. I didn't see her or hear her because I had the headphones on. I was listening to the album and I was doing stuff. And she was talking to me. And then she did the mom thing. She just yanks the cord out of the hi-fi. Just in time to hear cocksucker motherfucker tits. And she was like, oh, this is George Carlin. Where'd you get this? I was like, I got it from Dad. And I threw him right under the fucking bus. So those were formative years where I was not sitting there going, and because of this, one day I will be a filmmaker. That didn't come till like 9 years later when I was 21. I saw Richard Linklater's Slacker. I said, ooh, maybe I could do this. But my whole life, it was sitting next to my old man. I asked him one day, I was like, because he was very, very non-communicative. He's not me. He didn't wear his heart on his fucking sleeve and shit. He wasn't from that world. I said, Dad, what did you want to do when you were a kid? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, what did you dream about doing when you were like my age? You're like, how I dream about like making movies? What did you dream about before you gave up? And he was like, I didn't give up. I was like, well, what'd you dream about? He goes, I dreamt about getting married and having kids. And I was like, oh, so your dreams came true. He's like, yes. And I was like, oh, all right. But inside, I was like, are you serious? That's your fucking dream? Anybody could get married and have fucking kids. Where's this man's ambition? Like, no wonder we're in this little house in Highlands, New Jersey, because he's got no fucking ambition. Now, as a 54-year-old man, I can tell you without a doubt, my father was the smartest person I ever met.
Yeah.
I often wonder, like, if I hadn't veered toward entertainment, toward storytelling, which I have now been in longer than I've not been in it, right?
Yeah.
Like for 23 years, I was a normal ass human being doing good things and living a life like everybody else, trying to figure it out. And then at age 23, like I get pulled into fantasy land, and I've been there ever since. That's why I love being here. And I come back to Jersey all the time and probably why I drive past my house. It reminds me of the dreamer, the kid who would, walk these streets and didn't want to leave. My brother and sister couldn't wait to get out of our home fucking town. They were world travelers and shit like that. I never wanted to leave. Like I was happy. And I'm not saying that I'm not happy now. Like I found happiness elsewhere as well. But this is the place that built me. These are the streets that like made me dream. And this is the movie theater where I saw film after film after film and never once thought maybe I could do this shit. That had to happen in Manhattan, at an art house theater. That's where I had my dawning revelation. But anyway, back to 12 years old. So that's all the background that gets me to where I am at 12.
I have so many questions, but I sort of want to bring it from your childhood into Dogma. I'm curious about these kind of like spiritual and existential questions that you explore in that movie and how much of it stems with spiritual and existential questions that you were exploring at 12, 13, 14.
I was, my cosmology was handed to me by, my fucking parents. And my dad was more like, well, she fucks me, so whatever she says goes. Like he wasn't the hardcore Catholic. Mom was like hardcore Catholic. Dad's parents weren't hardcore Catholics. So mom's parents were, so they set the tone. So my mom's faith was handed to her by practically two strangers. My mom was an adopted kid. So she came to my grandparents, who I call my grandparents, through the Catholic charities. The Catholic Church would be like, we got these little babies on doorsteps. You want to raise a kid? They would just give kids to Catholic people to raise. And so my grandmother was given my mom at age like barely 1 or something like that. So I'm not a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but conversations I've had with my mother and other people who've been adopted, with a sense of like beyond gratitude, insane gratitude for, being chosen. There's a, psychology that goes along with why was I so easy to let go of, or ... But to be quote unquote rescued by somebody else. And my mom's point of pride is like, my brothers and sisters, she didn't have a choice. My mom had this. She chose me. So when you feel that way about your parents, everything your parents say is religion. And in the case of my mom was raised in that faith as well. She then inflicted it upon my dad because my dad was like, I want the sex to keep going. And then when she had us, it was given to us, and not in any sort of like, cruel way. It was like, it was so matter of fact. It was like, this is what we believe. This is true. And there was never a question in childhood of anything, like, and not like as a child, I was told not to have questions. It just never even occurred to me. It's like, of course there was a war in heaven. Of course there was Adam and Eve. Of course, the Ark. Of course, Jesus. Like all of this is just as real as raincoats. Like Marvel Comics, DC, that shit's fake. But these stories, biblically true. So being raised in that, there's just no bump whatsoever. I started bumping into it, probably around the time I started writing Clerks, as I was going to film school, because Dogma I started writing even before Clerks. Back then, it was called very ambitiously God. Thank the Lord.
You were going to call a movie God?
Yeah.
Wow.
At age 21, like I had so much experience.
Yeah.
As I got older, one day I tripped into that where I was like, hey man, we make fun of the Greeks and the Romans for believing all this stuff that we read now as literature. Who's to say that in 10,000 years, what we believe is Bible truth doesn't just turn out to be somebody else's literature that they're kind of goofing on us for and stuff. And those are blasphemous thoughts. let me be honest with you. We're on the set of Dogma. Okay. So we're 1998. We're shooting the movie.
And how old were you then?
20. Let me see. We start shooting. So I'm 27 heading into 28 at that time.
Wow.
George Carlin, and again, Dogma is an expression of a shaky belief system. This is me trying to hold on to my faith. So I'm working with George Carlin, one of my favorite artists on the damn planet and whatnot. Somebody I sought for the movie. I was like, we got to get George Carlin to play a Catholic cardinal, man. Like, we reached out to his manager. He goes, you want George to do comedy in your movie? I was like, no. I said, we want George to play a character, play a role, act. And he goes, what role would he play? I said, he'd play a Catholic cardinal. His manager goes, oh, fuck, George will love that shit. So going into the flick, I still believed. So I'm on set with Carlin, who is a very famous lapsed Catholic. It does lots of Catholic material, which I loved growing up. And we're doing the sequence, like, if you know the movie, like, it's in the third act. They're about to rededicate the church that these angels have to walk through. It's my most plot-driven movie I've ever met. Although after watching it night after night, it's really a movie full of people who just exposit the plot at one another and explain the movie to one another as the movie goes on. But it's still kind of fun to watch. So we're outside the church, and Ben and Matt show up, and all hell is about to break loose. And George is there dressed in his cardinal whites. So George goes, hey, what's going on in this scene again? And I was like, well, boys show up, they say their shit. Then off camera, like, what happens is they kill everybody. And then they're going to walk through the doors of the church. And when they come out, presumably they'll be gunned down by the cops, and that will send them straight to heaven. And George is going, where'd you get this shit? I was like, it's called a plenary indulgence, George. Like, it's a Catholic thing that happened in my church when I was a kid, 1983. We had a centennial, and our church was granted a plenary indulgence day by the papal see. Yeah, wow. So this happened. That's why it's, I'm not creative and shit. The plot of Dogma is predicated on something that happened when I was 13 years old, but I was like, wait a second. You walk through this door and all your sins are forgiven? They're like, yeah. I was like, what if you killed people? Like, all your sins are forgiven. I was like, what if I go inside, come back out, kill people, then go back in? All your sins are forgiven. It's like, this makes no sense. We've been told to like follow the rules, and suddenly we walk through a doorway and stuff. All the other kids let go of it. I held on to it for years. It wound up being kind of the core of Dogma. So there I am trying to explain it to George, right before we shoot. And so I'm going through the history of the plenary indulgence and shit, like a catechism. And George is like staring at me, just nodding. And he has the look on his face of like an adult when a kid over-explains Star Wars to him and shit. He's just like, and then finally he goes, you really believe in all this shit, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I was raised Catholic. You were raised Catholic. You don't? And he goes, no, I'm smarter than that. And so that was the beginning of the end. I'll never lay my lack of faith on somebody else's feet. I'm a grown man. I make my own decisions. However, tough to maintain your Catholicism in the face of one of the smartest people that you ever met, who is the one who really starts questioning, going, really? So it wasn't until I was 27 years old that I was like, perhaps there's more to this, than I thought.
Dogma to me specifically seems like a movie that was created by somebody who had actually already reached some of the conclusions you're talking about reaching sort of during and after. You'd come to your conclusions, sort of casting away the corruption and the strangeness of organized religion, but sort of holding on to, of all things, faith. But then you're speaking now about in a way where it's like you kind of threw faith out with that. And I guess what I remembered of Dogma was like, you don't need to worry about the inconsistencies of organized religion. Just believe in God. And so forgive me, but I guess I'm trying to understand if that's the message I got. It's interesting that you didn't seem to be either giving or receiving that same message, or I don't know. Are you saying that? Are you? Do you still have faith in something, or?
I think it's a good case of, do you trust the messenger? Like, is the message, what's more important, the message or the messenger? If you get something out of that movie that's, powerful, spiritual, that makes sense to me, because the person who wrote it and the person who directed it was that person. Like, he was a salesman for his faith, for what he believed, because every night I watch it on tour and I'm like, oh, look at this. This is a child's prayer. This is, if you know your Old Testament, this is King David. dancing the fool in front of the Ark of the Covenant. This was my profession of faith. This was me going like, I went to church my whole life and it was always boring and nobody seemed to celebrate their faith. They mourned it. This was my idea of church. Just happens to have a lot of anal jokes in it as well. So you're absolutely right. I'm not, as the person who put that all up there, and it's not so much the movie, and honestly, it wasn't George Carlin. And again, I'm an adult and I make my own decisions, but podcast that I did from 2007 for like 12 years was Smodcast with Scott Mosier. So Scott was, agnostic leaning toward atheists, our whole relationship. And if you listen to Smodcast, by the time we get to episode 200, he's not trying to disabuse me of my faith, but Scott is the guy who's like, I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe in heaven? Like, that's ridiculous. We have to go somewhere. And he's like, no, we don't. And I was like, yeah. I was like, what about everything I've learned and all that information and all my experience? He's going, see, that's the thing. That's the difference between us. He's going, your arrogance makes you believe that this all has to go on for you. He's going, but like, I don't feel that way. I think the world will keep turning without me. And I was like, but what about everything you learned, all your experiences? And he's like, they go right in the ground with me. I was like, that's impossible. It has to move on. He goes, why? He goes, look at your laptop. He's going, think about all the information on there. Because what happens to your laptop? One day it just spins down. But all that information, he goes, doesn't matter. It was there and now it's not.
Actually, now it goes on the cloud, so he's wrong.
Well, actually, I don't know enough about it to say this intelligently, but I just read something that quantum physics now believes that consciousness continues after the body dies in a new realm. And I was like, what is this? And I started to read about it and I couldn't understand it. But so quantum physics might now be on the side of some kind of an afterlife, even though it wouldn't use like Christian terms or Islamic terms or...
look, I don't believe in this traditional structure or the idea of heaven that I was given as a kid, which is like wonderful. But I do believe, man, that, and I don't think this is anything that hasn't been said before, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Yeah. So
of course, yeah.
It's always around us and people die. Yes, that happens, but nobody's ever truly gone because they just dissipate and then that energy is out there. And I feel like when you talk about the dead, that you're an antenna, you bring that energy. And it's not even, my cosmology is based on Pixar's Coco, of course. So if you've seen that movie, kids, that's what I believe.
That's what happens when we die, guys. Come on.
Honestly, is way better than the one I was given as a kid. I was like, I like this. And plus they got a killer song, that Remember Me shit. That'll break up even a robot, for heaven's sake.
Yeah. That's so good.
When I almost died from the heart attack 7 years ago, I get wheeled into the ER, and the Dr. Leidenheim, guy saved my life. He's like, you're having a widowmaker heart attack right now. That's kind of heart attack you're having. I said, what's that mean? And he goes, seriously? I have to explain it? He goes, fine. Yeah. He goes, you have 100% blockage across the front of your heart. In 80% of the cases, the patient always dies. But you're going to be in the 20% because I'm good at my job. And he disappeared into my crotch and made magic. That's how they get to your heart. They go through your femoral artery and stuff. So while he was doing that, I'm looking up at the ceiling and looking around the room, and I was like, this might be it. This is the moment you've been terrified of your whole life. This could be the last room you ever see. This might be the last ceiling you ever see. And, so here it is. You've been waiting your whole life for this moment. Start the movie, see, let's let your life go flash before your eyes. And before I could do that, I was like, well, wait a second. Is there a chance I get out of this? Like he said, 20%, that's pretty low. I was like, maybe prayer would help that. And then I figured like, if I started praying, God might be like, you made Dogma, fuck you. And I didn't want to presume upon that relationship at the desperate hour. But I feel like as I get older, I will re-embrace my faith totally one day. But it just feels cheap that it's going to be like when I'm old and I'm desperate and I need it.
Are you looking for stylish sunnies? Sunglasses. Sunnies. I'm not Australian. Maybe I shouldn't say sunnies. Are you looking for stylish sunglasses that actually keep up with your lifestyle without breaking the bank? Well, maybe now is your chance to say hello to Gooder sunglasses, starting at just $25 a pair. These shades are built for everything from trail runs to beach days to pickleball matches, brunch dates, late night walk with a dog. Although then why are you wearing sunglasses? You want to make an impression with your in-laws. I don't know. You don't want to be seen and noticed? Well, that's hard. If you're wearing a pair of these. From vibrant colors to sleek styles, there's a pair of Gooders for every personality. Every pair is 100% polarized, lightweight, and designed with a no-slip, no-bounce fit, so they stay put, whether you're breaking a sweat, you're jogging it out, or you're just laying down and soaking up the sun. Plus, they come with a 1-year warranty and 30-day free returns, which I'm impressed by. I have to say, I do own a pair. I actually got this pair before I ever had to do this ad. It's a true story. Super, super practical. I wear them because I have children. They pull them off my face, throw them on the ground. I do go running in them. They're incredibly dynamic. They're so simple. I honestly couldn't say enough good things about these sunglasses because any other pairs I've had, they tend to cost a lot and you lose them like that or they break. And these, you just never have to worry about it. They're so affordable. You can have a pair for any and every occasion. Whether you're hiking, you're biking, you're running, you're going out for coffee, good or sunnies, sunglasses, sorry, Mom, are the perfect sidekick for your active life. If you need a new pair of sunnies, Gooder is giving Podcrushed listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/podcrushed and use code podcrushed for free shipping. Gooder offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Debt doesn't just show up one day, it builds, right? Little by little. Credit cards, car loans, medical bills, and suddenly you're juggling payments, feeling stuck, maybe. Well, here's the good news. You're not stuck. You just need a reset. At American Financing, they help homeowners like you every day. They use your home's equity and roll that high-interest debt into one simple, affordable payment. They're saving homeowners an average of $800 a month. No judgment, no pressure. Just real solutions that put you back in control. Imagine breathing again, sleeping again, knowing your future is yours to shape. It starts with one call. It only takes 10 minutes to get started, and there are no upfront fees, so it costs nothing to find out how much you can save. And if you start today, you may be able to delay your next 2 mortgage payments. American Financing's salary-based consultants are ready to listen and ready to help. Take back your peace of mind with American Financing. Call American Financing today. 866-889-1776. That's 866-889-1776. AmericanFinancing.net/podcrushed.
Kevin, I'm going to Penn, I've never done this before, but I'm going to preview you 3 questions. I feel like you're such a good storyteller. You'll weave them all together. But we have 3 classic questions that we ask every guest. So you'll tell us a story that brings them all together. So one is tell your first love and first heartbreak. Another is like an embarrassing, cringy memory from when you were 12, 13. And then the final question we ask everyone is, what advice would they give or what would they say to their 12-year-old selves if they could spend a little time with them? So if you can kind of bring those 3 together.
I think you can do it, and I think that's brilliant, Nava. I think you're right.
I think I can, and it's so weird that you talk about it because I'm here in the right place. So here we are in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, at what is now Smog Castle Cinemas, but used to be the Atlantic Highlands Twin Cinema is what it was called. For most of my life, it was one single screen. And then right around the time Scarface came out, they took one of the rows of seats away, built a hallway, and added a second theater, which was everything in our world. They're like, oh my God, there's a second candy counter in Atlantic and shit. It was all the news. So my first love is Kim Loughran, my high school girlfriend, who is in a lot of the movies I made. She's in Clerks and whatnot. And she grew up here in Atlantic. So she was the reason I spent a lot of my childhood here in Atlantic. When I wasn't going to this movie theater with my father, I was usually going with Kim Loughran. If you saw, the last movie I made came out last year. It was called The 4:30 Movie. It was about like our first date at this movie theater. So we retroed it back to what it looked like when we were kids and whatnot. And I kind of told that story. So in the theater here, I got hanging up on the wall behind me, the something I found, because I keep everything and shit. And this, let's see if I can get it on there. You might not see it's a reflection, but it says, it's a reflection. Kevin, Dirty Dancing is downtown, the Atlantic Twin Cinema. Please take your skirt sporting loving girlfriend to see it. I love you, Kim. That is the theater that we're talking about, like right here and shit. So I found that note and I fucking hung it up because this is the theater that like built my ideas of romance, right? Like this is not just like me actually dating somebody, but this is where I saw Valley Girl, man. Right. Martha Coolidge really set the tone for me for the rest of my life, where I was like, all right, this is what romance is and stuff. So Kim was my absolute first love and whatnot, and we still in each other's lives, and we've known each other for years and whatnot. But we broke up in high school, and then got back together kind of after high school, but eventually broke up for good because, and this is so like weird now to think about it, she was in college at this point when we broke up, and she was like, you just don't have any ambition anymore. She's like, you know, you used to do all the plays in high school. You wanted to write for Saturday Night Live when you were young, and now you don't do anything. You just hang out with your friends Brian and Walter and Jay Muse, and you know, you stop showing any sort of ambition.
Wow.
And she was, you know, in an ambitious world. She was going to college. She knew people who were doing things. When we were dating and I was bringing her here and we were hanging out and whatnot, I was, you know, interesting because like I was one of a kind in our little small town. But when Kim went to college, she met a lot of Kevin Smiths from all over the world, man, who were just as interesting, if not far more so and shit. And so, you know, realizing that like, oh my God, my shtick doesn't work anymore because there are others out there like me. I have to, for lack of a better term, up my game. And the desire to be interesting to Kim again is what built all of this. Like me going to make Clerks and all of that was just like, well, I got to show ambition and stuff.
Wow.
And then ironically in the process, we just kind of went our separate ways. Again, friends still, and we know each other very well. But, you know, the person who set me on the path didn't get to take the journey, you know, with me, even though they were the one that was just like, you really need to be you. Like she reminded me, kicked me in the pants. So, you know, the movie theater here is the trapped in time. The seats in theater one are the exact same seats I sat in when I went, you know, on my first movie date with Kim Lochran, where I sat with my father when I was a kid. They're uncomfortable as fuck. That's why nobody comes here. They go to the Carmikey down the street because they got those layback seats and shit like that.
I love that you're advertising it.
I know. Don't go to the Carmikey, kids. But it's a nostalgia palace. You know, if you look around the walls, it's all fucking old posters from Kevin Smith movies and shit. And the wall across from me right here is a mural of all famous people that came from Jersey and whatnot. I spend a lot of time looking backwards.
Do you also have the Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible poster behind you too?
That's what's coming next. It's coming this week and stuff.
So you still you play current movies there too?
Oh yeah, we're not just an art house. We got 5 screens. So it basically all the time it's new movies. And you know, this Dogma thing we're doing, like I've been on tour with the movie, and they were all at AMC theaters, but I was like, I got to do them at my own theater as well. And they were like, go ahead. And we sold out like 5 shows. So I'm here for 2 days doing shows. And that's generally what I do. I come back from Los Angeles all the time, once a month. And we do like shows. Like one of the next shows we got coming up is Clerks Open All Night, where you come here at 11 o'clock. We lock the doors at midnight. And from midnight till 6 in the morning, you watch Clerks, Clerks 2, Clerks 3. And then 6 in the morning, we eat a breakfast catered from Quick Stop and shit. Wow. So we like to do stuff like that. That way we can upcharge, man, because nobody comes to the movies anymore. I don't know if anybody told you, but film exhibitions in the fucking toilet. It's pretty tough. So you got to figure out ways to have people come and stuff. But yeah, we get new movies all the time in this place. You know, most people just come, like, you know, we have 5 sold out Dogma screens. So over the course of the 5 screenings, 2 last night and 3 today, 1,000 people coming through this bitch. Wow. So as a lot of popcorn, and that's how you fucking keep a movie theater open, selling popcorn and snacks and stuff. But yeah, we do new movies, kids. If you're looking for a new movie, come to Smog Castle Cinemas, located not near anything convenient.
Hey, listen, maybe your numbers are going to finally skyrocket now that
this could be it. This could be my moment, man.
On our show. So we'll go to our final question.
Wait, embarrassing story.
No, that's what I was going to say. Through the embarrassing story. I would love to hear an embarrassing story from this time, and then.
Oh my God. When I had to go through the file cabinet, this is the only thing in the filing cabinet, in the folder of my cringe moments where I still to this day, it gives me hives. So there was a girl in our town. She lived one street over from us. Her name was Paige Newman. And the young Kevin Smith referred to her as a tough girl. She was a bully. She wasn't really, but she was just more harsh than most people I dealt with at that age and stuff. So Paige Newman, like whenever I was walking by her house, if she was outside, I crossed the street to walk past her house and stuff like that. Just didn't want to get called out by her, especially around in front of people. So one day I'm at our Catholic school, OLPH, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And, we wore uniforms. So fucking slacks on the boys, white shirts, green ties, green sweaters. And the girls wore jumpers, green checkered, white and green checkered jumpers. So I'm on the playground and this is my world, right? This is where I go to school. I know everybody. I got it wired. Our class sizes are very small and shit like that. No more than like 20 per class. So I know everybody at OLPH, even though I'm in, at this point, 4th grade. I'm 9 years old. Once again, a terrible thing happened when I was 9. I round the corner on the parking lot where all the kids like played during lunch. And Paige Newman is standing there wearing a jumper. Like she's part of OLPH. So the person that lives by my house and for years, I wouldn't go so far as to call her my bully, but I was fucking scared of her for years and stuff, is standing right in front of me, and she's entered my world and she's going to be there on a regular basis based on the fact that she's wearing this fucking jumper. And my first reaction is this. I go, "You're in our school? You're in our school. You're in our school." And I start dancing and fucking clapping and going, "You're in our school," and get away from there. Still to this day, fucking gives me cringe thinking about that was the best I could fucking do. You're in our school. Like,
oh my gosh.
What as the kids would say today, a cuck, which for my money is not necessarily a bad thing, but oh my God, what a soft boy.
Yeah.
You're in our school.
The amazing thing is if you're just listening, Kevin has turned to bright red and it's so endearing.
Still thinking about it.
It's so
like,
endearing.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
This will be the next thing I discuss with my therapist, kids.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to our last question, Kevin. Penn, do you want to ask it?
Sure, yeah. If you could go back to 12-year-old Kevin, what would you say or do, if anything?
I'd give him way better lines than "you're in our school." I'll tell you that much. I'd be like, "Here's 100 things you could say. It makes more sense." You know what I would tell him? Change nothing, because what you do from now until the moment I take over gets us where we're going. I love young Kev Smith because he made some weird decision that old Kev Smith never would make. I don't know why he believed in himself so much, why he thought like he could make a movie, never having done that before and shit. But that kid who was so fucking like run of the mill and shit, never finished anything with the exception of high school, and had given up, according to his high school girlfriend, lost his ambition for some reason. And now we know partly, mostly to impress Kim, for some reason felt he could fucking pull it off. And went for it. And because he did, I have lived like this, me personally, who is separate from that kid, have lived like a dream existence. I walked into like a table that he set for me and sat down. And as the kids say, I ate, you know what I'm saying, for the last like 30 fucking years. So I would tell 12-year-old Kevin Smith, like, shit's going to happen and some of it's going to break your heart. And you're always going to feel this weird emptiness. It's always going to bug you if your friends do a thing and don't call you. And how you work all of that out is I can't tell you what happens, but it all adds up to what you become. And if I tell you what we become, you'd be so happy about it. I just don't want to tell you how the sausage is made. You need to see that yourself. And then I'll be holding on to the mantle for you. I can't wait to give it back to you when you get there.
That's so well said.
Love that.
You're also such a filmmaker because you don't want to spoil it for little Kevin.
Yeah, it's great.
I do. I'm like, oh my God, there's such an adventure ahead of us.
So many
really
plot
good.
twists.
I'm not going to ruin it for you. The third act, woo.
The thing I always tell kids when I go, like, I'm out there talking, because the older you get, it's easier to like pass on what you've learned, and people take it more seriously than when you were a kid. And most of the time, whenever I get to talk to folks, I'm always telling them, like, I hate to be this, I don't want to be Tony Robbins, but like, you literally, mind is the creator, for heaven's sakes. And you kind of get to set the tone. And it doesn't mean you get to write your own ticket in the world. And you never get what you want on the schedule you wanted. Like, you're lucky and you do get it, but it's never at the time you want it. But at the end of the day, why not try? Why not like die on the cross of originality, of doing the thing that you dream about, rather than waiting? And like, I got this kid, right? Like Harley, she's 26, she's about to turn 26. And for years, man, even when she was a little kid, she would watch iCarly. And I was the kind of dad, I was like, well, you can watch iCarly or you can write an iCarly. One of them's more fun, and I've always been kind of pushing her. And she became an actor, and she like goes out like every actor, hat in hand, doing auditions and self-tapes, trying to get jobs. And I'm always like, why are you going out there and asking somebody else to like give you your future? Like, write your own ticket, man. Like, you don't wait for somebody to give you permission to make your dream come true. You could go do it. Like, there are people making movies all the time. And I know a guy that whose balls you used to live in who did the very same thing. So like, don't wait to be picked, kids. No help is ever coming. Pick yourselves, man, and drive that train. Get in and start driving. Don't wait for assistance. Sadly, there may be none, but you find some why not people, man. I always tell cats, like, the world is full of why. You tell people, I want to do a thing. First thing, you're not greeted with the Hosanna chorus. You're greeted with a big floppy dick of why in the face. Like, why? Why do you think you could do that? Why are you saying this all of a sudden? Why do you feel that way and I don't? Why are you acting this way? Like, people are suspect because the world's a crab pot. And if you climb out of it, there are 1,000 legs to pull you back down, because God forbid you went somewhere and reminded people that they could do the same thing, but just didn't and stuff. So you try to get something done. You surround yourself with why not people. So if you're like, I want to try this thing, I want to step outside my box, do a thing I'm not known for doing. You want to help, and they'll be like, yeah, why not? That sounds cool. Why not? I wasn't going to do anything anyway, so jerk off. Why not? Let's do that. That's better. You surround yourself with why not individuals. You don't need much more than that, kids. Yeah. Like, you just find yourself a little congregation, and you build yourself a church, a very small chapel. And then slowly over a lifetime, you turn it into your own fucking cathedral, man. And as it breaks the sky, you're going to hear from people who have all sorts of criticisms about how you're building your cathedral wrong. Ignore them. Go for the sky.
He says in front of a poster of himself.
Yeah.
Kevin,
that was fun. Oh my God, I enjoyed the fuck out of that question.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. It's such
Kevin,
a pleasure.
this was such a pleasure. You're such an epic storyteller, obviously, but really, even just on the podcast, really already one of my favorite guests.
Kids, that means the world. Anytime you guys are short somebody or somebody dips out and shit,
we'll call you. You can watch Dogma in theaters now, and you can keep up with Kevin Smith online at that Kevin Smith.
Podcrushed is hosted by Penn Badgley, Nava Kaplan, and Sophie Ansari. Our senior producer is David Ansari, and our editing is done by Clips Agency. Special thanks to the folks at Lemonada. And as always, you can listen to Podcrushed ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Okay, that's all. Bye.
You know what they told me when I was in the nut house, man? It was really useful. They said, we get trapped by our thoughts, but they're like, your thoughts aren't your own. You like to think that your thoughts are your own. You generate them, but you don't. You generate a very small percentage of your actual thoughts. They said, think about it as standing under a shower head. They're like, all those drops are different thoughts, and that's happening constantly. And some of them come from people you'll never meet. You're having thoughts that were started by people in your DNA chain, your genetic chain, that have nothing to do with you, man. So it's important to, we need to think, but it's important to stay out of it. Sometimes you got to step out of the shower. You know what I'm saying? And how we do that? Art. Like listening to the podcast. I'm sure you got a bunch of people out there. You're making healthy with this alone. Making movies, writing books, crocheting, making a cupcake that somebody loves. Make stuff, kids. 2 paths in this life: creation, destruction. Be a creator.
That's so true.
That's nice.
I love
like that for a final line.